I gotta get that, but you know, I can take your shit. There is some shiny. Like you raised. Oh, for sure. Yeah. It really small. It's in a show. Polished down.
Oh, if you have not signed in, there's a sign-in sheet right at the it's next. Please do.
I kicked off the. Oh, no, like was signing it. I was like, no.
Every time I do that, you jump. It's not like, oh, this is new. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Trustees of the Spokane Public Library. Gary Stokes, I'm the chair of the board. We have any visitors that have not yet signed up or signed in? See, and now the land acknowledgement. All Spokane Public Library buildings from the traditional homelands of the four bands of the Spokane Tribe of Indians: Upper Band, Middle Band, Lower Band, and Chewelah Band. Since time immemorial, the Spokane Tribe of Indians has lived and cared for these grounds, identifying themselves as Squealics, or flesh of the earth. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We show gratitude to the land, river, and peoples who have been fishing, hunting, harvesting, and gathering here for generations. May we learn from one another's stories so that we may nurture the relationship of the people of the Spokane Tribe and to all those who share this land. Okay, the agenda has been posted and disseminated. Do we have any adoptions or changes?
Just a note that under new business, F will take place after the executive session
I think that, thank you.
for our studio audience.
Okay, now it's time to approve the November 2024 board minutes.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. We have a motion and a second. And then next is the approval of the November 2024 bills and contributions, $1,434,552.90.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Nicole. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so for the November financial report, the library operation and our cash and investment trend. So for our November, we did receive the levy limit tax dollars from the county as we expected. The amount that we received is $1,225,413. The library at month end has enough cash and investment balance. It's able to cover 141 days of operating costs. That balance is $6,832,830. That does include the reserve and net of encumbrances. Encumbrances is $130,851. For the expenditure trend for operations, November costs came to $1,365,023. 81% of that was for staffing. That was a total of 3 pay periods for that month. Our capital books and materials were $118,327. Our utilities expenses were $29,652. Our third-party security guard services with Securitas totaled $19,329. And then our interfund charges were $8,799. That was for IT and then a little bit for fuel. So those are done here. For the IT will post in December. Any questions on the operations side before on? There's a lot going on before year end. So for the bond fund, November purchases were $69,530. We did pay Spokane Arts for purchases and services in the amount of $34,088. We did have construction services and architect and engineering for $18,323. Our South Hill furniture, fixtures and equipment was $11,906. We'll talk about that's part of our closeout on the project. That was the retained paid. And then Nevada construction, we paid $5,144. Here's another snapshot, of course, an update for what we have remaining on our projects by the end of November. So we've got $1,294,474. So since the inception of the 2018 unlimited tax general obligation bond, we have spent a total of 98%. So we're really coming in on that last 2%. Neither can me. We did recently wrap up with the Spokane Arts, and our final contract payment was actually just issued this week. During the month of November, we received notice of completion and approval letters as follows. So from the Department of Revenue, we received 3 letters, one for the Indian Trail landscaping, South Hill custom casework, and the 5 Mile kiosk. And then we also received a letter from the Department of Labor and Industries for the 5 Mile kiosk. So those 3 projects have officially moved into closed status. So we're very excited about that. And currently, other than the Nevada project, we're currently waiting on the retainage release letter from the Department of Revenue, which is for the central branch staff furniture. The balance on that retainage right now is $28,157. So once we get that, we'll be able to release it. And my favorite snapshot ever on the next page. Just got 2 left. So once that central one, and then we're for an active project. So looking pretty cool. Any questions on bond?
So is the 1.29 million on the encumbrance remaining, is that going to be carried over because it's encumbered now? And
That's right. So that's going to whatever we spend between now and period. December and period 13. So whatever that balance ends up remaining will become our budget for 2025. Yep. So for business office updates, the year end, I don't know, I just switched right there. The year end preparation is currently underway. We do have period 13 set to close in mid-January. I don't have an official date from the city yet. The encumbrance carry forward balances will roll into the 2025 budget by the end of January. That does include 24, so it's all of our 24 year end reporting. So it'll be the actuals, and then that part is disclosed as we stated when we established the 2025 budget. So that's part of that complete follow through of the adoption process for the encumbrance. And a reminder, due to the closure and the year-end process, there is not going to be a financial report in the month of January. So both 2024 year-end and January financials are presented in the month of February. And then recently, we were contacted by the Washington State Auditor's Office, and they began to conduct a citywide audit of purchasing cards. We do anticipate them to reach out for sampling soon, but at this point, we have provided them our help. And we wish everybody happy holidays.
Thank you. Nice way to end. Any comments and questions? Okay. I wanted to make a point of work that I wanted to make sure that I gave a shout out to Sam for all the work that he did for me after I asked you for all that information. So much appreciated, and it gave me a much better idea of where we are and how we're going. So thank you. Okay, Andrew.
All right, director's report. We have been working on a draft communication plan that we'll be presenting, draft up to the board tonight for some input. We'll also have an opportunity to go, look at it at our retreat. Paris will be presenting tonight. Amanda's not, on leave right now. Also been doing, trustee recruitment for, the soon to be vacated position by Mara. Really great amount of applications coming in. Last count, 55, which is what we received last time. And I recall the first 2 years that I was here, we sometimes get 4 or 5. We considered that lucky. So whoever sits on the selection committee, we're gonna have fun because there's a lot of great applicants that have
When will that go?
the end of this month. I imagine we'll get a few more trickling in. But I think it really shows sort of the pride that people have in the local library system, and it reflects some of the good work we've been able to do over the past few years. For our DEI efforts, we will be viewing and discussing a documentary called "There Is Something in the Water," which explores environmental racism and the disproportionate impact of that environmental damage on Indigenous communities in Canada. That will be towards the end of this week and having a discussion. And in November, we also celebrated a Transgender Awareness Week, and that was Spokane's Trans Day of Remembrance at the Central Library. We are really well attended. We have some new items that we're adding to the library things. These be really under the cooking category. So things like cookie cutters, silicone bakeware, induction cooktop kit, things that don't always make sense for people to buy for one-time use for the year that they can now for the library, or just try out a different cooking method like with an Instapot. With our staffing, we're really proud that Dana Bronson was appointed to the city council's, appointed by the city council to the Spokane's Historic Landmarks Commission in the historian position. As you know, Dana's really opened up access to the Inland Northwest collections, and really proud to see her on this important role. Our star spotlight for November went to Isaac Keith from our facilities team. If you've ever been to the Central Library, you'll know that the first floor restroom is heavily utilized, and they have really been staying on top of it. Really appreciate that because it makes for a more welcoming space for the public. We also held a leadership retreat this month to build on the conversations that we had at staff day around Vision 2030. The discussions were facilitated by the weekly group, and we'll be using the feedback and thoughts that we received from the leadership team as well as staff to present the draft plan for trustee input again at the trustee retreat in January. I also took part in the cabinet retreat, mayor's cabinet retreat in December. We're still working on draft and strategy for what we're going to be focusing on the next few years. But I'm looking forward to seeing the initiatives solidify. And we can also use that to help inform the library's plan. And the city council did pass their budget. I'm not going to hide that we were disappointed in the 5% cut, but might be able to shed some light on that as well as hopefully move us forward with strategy to regain that 5% that.
Can I ask a question? Was the 5% for the next 2 years or just the next?
2 years. Yep. We've also been doing, recall that we purchased a software called Thought Exchange. Spokane's system uses, we actually utilized that for the first time last week, and we're using it to get staff sentiments on possibly changing some of our public hours. We're getting used to the tool and staff's getting used to the tool. Our familiarity and using that, again, it'll determine we might want to propose to the board. And finally, this is not part of the report, but the library is going to be taking over the PEG dollars. These are public educational government dollars used for community access TV. These are formerly received by CMTV, Community Enterprises. It amounts to about $70,000 per year. And we will be utilizing those to not only supplement our library of things with cameras, tripods, and things that people can use to record content for public access, but also we can use that for our production studio. We can use it for stage. This is a yearly contribution grant, as you call it, from the city. KSPS also receives those dollars, but we'll be able to utilize those and use it to also broadcast some of the programs that we have, not just on YouTube, but also on cable access. So I think that this will be a win-win for us. I think it'll give us a little bit more motivation to be recording some of the programs that we have and then broadcasting them out to the public as well. I have a meeting with the city on some of the logistics that we'll need to do in order to receive those dollars. But we'll be sure to keep the updated as we go through this process. Questions?
Oh, the thought exchange tool that you talked about, is that just gonna be used internally, or is that a tool that might be used to solicit kind of public on 2030?
So we wanted to test it with staff first, so we knew what we were doing.
Sure.
And as well as give staff some of the exposure of what the public will be seeing. But yeah, we plan to use that pretty heavily during the strategic planning process as well for very specific questions about just different sentiments that they might have, additional different initiatives that we're thinking of.
I have a question, and probably one that I should know, so myself up to that.
All right.
But the library of things, how long do you get to keep?
So I think we usually check out for the typical 3-week checkout period. So
Both 3 weeks and 1 week, depending on the item and the demand.
So let's go for 1 week. I think I have like the drums.
And how many of those you use at one time?
it's a good question.
I think there are any
I don't think
limits.
there's probably I think it's gonna be similar to both this, or there's not.
There you go.
These are questions that I don't set like that
If they're
answer to,
in-house,
so.
you can use them and you can see what's available online. Or if there's a waiting list. You go check out up to 2 items at a time.
There you go. Now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when we all work together. I love it when we do that.
Most of my questions, I'll just wait.
Hi, Paul.
Hello,
Welcome.
happy to be here. Well, thank you. Yeah, I can just give kind of a brief council update. We had our last meeting of the year last night. I think the kind of the bigger meeting was last Monday. Sorry, the Monday before last, where we went to almost midnight. So there was a lot that came out of that, including a 1-year extension for Spokane Arts as we look to fold them back into the city. as some may recall, the arts department was eliminated from the budget in 2012. So excited to see this moving forward. We approved our state legislative agenda, which we'll be advocating for this 2025 legislative session. Some of the big items are the waste to energy facility, um, uh, an idea around land value tax evaluation, which would be a pilot for Spokane that looks at kind of highest and best use for vacant properties, as well as funding for emergency weather and behavioral health. Of course, the big item was around council rules. Happy to report that our meetings are staying on Monday. We will also be opening up public testimony for committees, which I'm really excited about, as well as any amendments and policies that are going to be on the legislative agenda must now be posted 10 days in advance. So that'll give folks a lot more time to see different policies. And then we did extend the contract for community-oriented policing services, Spokane Cops. There was a lot of engagement around this issue. So this would extend their contract through the spring, and then an open RFP would go out, which of course they're very welcome and encouraged to apply for. I mean, I think two of the big items, just boards and commissions and budget. I'm sad to report that, well, bittersweet, that Councilmember Klitsky will be replacing me as the council liaison for the library board. Really has been an honor, to serve. I think scheduling lot wise, this will work out a little bit better, and I'm hopeful that she'll be able to be a little bit more present and engaged than I was. I didn't realize that I was on 16 different boards and commissions this year until later on. And I think just scheduling this will work out a lot better for her. And then of course budget. I know Andrew was touching on this before, and the budget has been passed for our biennial budget. There's definitely some quick highlights in there, increasing staffing for code enforcement, which I think is a really good thing. But I think surprised, quite honestly, how things came out with the library budget. It's disappointing as the council liaison. I'm hopeful that it is something that we can perhaps look to modify and discuss in our mid-budget year review. And I mentioned this to Andrew, but I really do think it underscores the need and the push to make sure that the library is locked into a fixed percentage for our overall general fund. I mean, that is something that we do have for parks. It really makes sense to have for libraries, and so I think through this all, I think this really did drive that message back home, and that's what I've certainly imparted to the mayor's budget team and the rest of council. So I'm hopeful that we can get there.
Thank you, Paul.
That's it for council update.
Paul, thank you for being a great liaison. More importantly, thank you for showing up and giving us the lay of the land, particularly this time of year. So thank you for all you've done, and we look forward to bringing Kitty on board.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Amanda.
I'll be giving the marketing report today instead of Amanda because she does not have a voice right now. So a few of the highlights from our November, we got to start off the month going to St. Louis for the Library Marketing and Communications Conference. And Skylar, Amanda, and myself presented on internal communication, what hasn't worked, what has worked, how we're moving forward, future aspirations. And we just recently got the feedback back from it, and feedback was just very positive. We were really thrilled with it. It was considered, this is quotes. It was considered the most practical and favorite session of the conference with relevant and helpful insights. Presenters were described as organized, polished, and excellent. So that but more than anything, I feel like we learned a lot. We took away a lot. And then whenever we present too, we have a really good time, and we also learn a lot about other libraries, because more people approach you afterwards, and there's just so much camaraderie in libraries, and you just learn so much, because it feels really good to know that other libraries are experiencing similar things that we're experiencing. So we had a great time. You can see a picture of us three in front of our presentation screen at the conference on the marketing report. We also have really exciting news that we welcomed a part-time student from Gonzaga University as a communications assistant. So she's already just hit the ground running. She's doing an absolutely amazing job, and we are so thrilled to have that additional help with some of the things that I think a lot of the times we get, we can't prioritize because we have higher level things that we need to work on. And so she's been able to really step in and help supplement some of that work. So it's been really exciting for us. And then we participated in the Vision 2030 workshop with leadership workshop with the rest of the leadership team, and had an absolutely fantastic time. A few of the things just to note on the stats, way of things, the email marketing for November was really good in terms of open rate. For the there was one about a see tiny treasures from the vault. They're little tiny books that Sharma and Dana basically presented and gave historical context to, and in partnership with one of our current artists in residence who specializes in book binding and kind of book arts. So that one got almost a 40% open rate, and sending to, multiple hundreds of thousands of people. To get 40% of those people opening that's just really something to celebrate. And then of course the board recruitment email also saw almost a 40% open rate. So lots of really exciting things. Not a ton of media mentions and this last month, but we already have one from this month, and we anticipate a couple more. That's it.
Jason.
All right, first off, there's a major typo in the stats, so ignore that 14,000 number. It should be, our total attendance this month was 3,435. That number carried over from last month, didn't get corrected. I don't know who would have made that mistake. We had 329 programs in November. November and December are traditionally the lowest totals for us. So that's about 80 down from last month. Lots of great stuff happening. Our highest youth impact score event was actually the November 18th kindergarten countdown story time. You're gonna hear more about that from Lauren here in a bit. That one had 71 people show up with a really high score. The highest attended youth event overall was a toddler story time, again, with 104 people, I think, in this room. So it's a lot of kids. As Andrew mentioned, transgender Day of Remembrance, we hosted at Central. Again, this year's the third year in a row. 235 people came out for that one. It was a great event, really well organized and run this year. Yeah, and thanks to staff and security for keeping an eye out, but we had no problems with that at all. Our top 4 impact score youth events were all kindergarten countdown story times. So that is really, it has a huge impact on our community. We partnered with KSPS for Lila in the Loop at Explore Computational Thinking. We had 80 people come over the 2 sessions of that. Dana did with EWU, a workshop on racially restrictive covenants. And that brought in 47 people and had a lot of good tension around that. And that really sums up the month. Any questions?
Have we done a transgender day before?
It's the third year we've done it. Same, it's a partnership with a lot of different groups, but Trans Spokane, Odyssey, and Pride, different groups come together for it.
And is it about the same number each year?
Of attendees,
Yeah.
this is double last year, and then I think first year was kind of the same. It's like 110 last year, the year before. This was a big one this year.
On to new business. Nicole.
Thank you very much. Okay, so 2025 business insurance. I do want to thank Andrew again for filling in for me at the last board meeting. I was stuck in a half day long, I would say, very thorough inspection of Central Branch. We went from the basement to rooms I didn't know existed all the way to the roof. Very interesting, but it was good to do. We do one every few years, and this is my first experience. So our existing policies, of course, set to expire December 31st, 2024. So that's upcoming. That does exclude the site pollution and workplace violence. Those do renew mid-year, so in the month of May. So those are some months. We do continue to work with Hub International Northwest VP Tom Blue. He does ensure that we maintain competitive pricing amongst the insurance carriers throughout the industry. So we did go out for proposals again this year. It had been a couple of years since he did that for us. We had a total of 16 companies that responded. 9 of them declined because of some of the requests that we have, such as the umbrella insurance and the earthquake coverage. So overall, most competitive company was our current carrier, which is Philadelphia. So here's just a side-by-side comparison of the 2024 expiring policy costs versus the 2025 renewal cost. Overall, it's a 10.98% increase. We'll just call it 11%. So we've got property, which does include insurance, or I'm sorry, earthquake for our property insurance. That also does include the addition of the Nevada Geodome and the 24/7 kiosk. It's a little bit more of an increase there. For the inland marine policy, which covers our information technology, all of our equipment assets, computers and things like that. So crime, of course, theft and ransom included in that. For our general liability, for that injury and damages, that's 1 million each occurrence, an aggregate of 2 million. In addition to that, we have the umbrella policy, so that brings our aggregate up to 10 million. We're covered for any catastrophic liabilities. Unfortunately for this year, so when Philadelphia came back to us, they said, here's the renewal cost, but we're only going to allow you a $5 million umbrella policy. So we're going to carry an additional $5 million umbrella policy, which is about 6,000 to 10,000. So we're kind of waiting on that final cost. I did include 10,000 additional in this just to make sure that we are covered from the adoption side of it. So unfortunately, that's just kind of the world that we're in when it comes to insurance. But at least we will be covered. So we've got our automobile insurance. So we do have a total of 7 vehicles for insuring. We have 17 drivers that are listed to be covered if they're driving on behalf of the library. Employment practices liability, so any wrongful termination, harassment, or discrimination, if any of those things are claimed. This covers us there. This does also extend to any third-party contractors. So for example, if there's a claim against a security guard of some sort, we'd be covered there too.
May I ask, does that line item include directors and officers insurance?
Yes, it does. Yep. And then we've got the site pollution and workplace violence, which will renew in the middle of the year. Any questions on any of those details?
So I just want to confirm, you have estimated the cost of the additional umbrella in the total here.
That's
So the- Okay, so that what we approved today is based.
And so they decreased that even because it's 5 million. Yeah. You know, thoughts. No, it's very exciting.
Insurance.
So a motion to approve binding the insurance coverage policies for the year 2025 at a combined amount of $138,639.
Move. Second. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you, Nicole, for your work on that.
okay, partnership cards.
So I'm just gonna chat quickly about our partnership cards because we think they're pretty cool. And these, as most of you know, they started out with the Spokane Public Schools, getting all the students their cards, and they go through, when they log into Clever, they click on a Spokane Library link, takes them right in. So we've got some single sign-on going on with that. What's really neat is we're now bringing on, we have community colleges, got G Prep is reaching out. So we have a lot of organizations and businesses that want to talk about how they can get their employees these cards. And the reason it matters is you have, so it's for businesses who are in the city of Spokane. So many of their employees may be outside of Spokane, and if they want them to be able to take advantage of the training that's offered, they can't because they're not a city resident or they'd have to pay for a card. So this is a great way for businesses and schools to be able to push the online products, the digital products, so that their staff can take advantage of it. Also, a lot of people, especially the super users, they want to have them separate. And I did talk with one person about it because unhealthy boundaries, not a big deal to me. I'll use my card for anything. Many people, they said, no, I want the stuff that I do for work and I want my LinkedIn, so it was Linda LinkedIn at the time. I want that to be separate than my personal stuff. It's great. So this is a nice way to be able to offer that to people. So that's the cool part. And you also get to introduce it. So maybe they have a bunch of staff that didn't really think what the library might have to offer to them. Now that's the offer. The other is you have to have a library card to book our meeting rooms. So this now can open it up to employees and staff to be able to book our meeting rooms. The part that's really cool is the technology behind it. So the school district that was a big lift. We get a nightly FTP of their students, and then if they're gone, they're gone. New people get added. It's a pretty complicated process we have set up with them. But we can also do it a lot simpler where with the community colleges, now when students log into their school portal, same thing. They get to click on it and it brings them right to the sign up page. So especially with college students, they don't live here. So having that barrier right there to go in and say, well, I do live here, but I don't have bills with my name. You don't have all the traditional things that it takes to get a library card. They now have quick access to it. So it's very exciting. We are in talks right now with STA. So with the new kiosk up at 5 Mile, I happened to be up there one day and the bus driver was saying, this is so exciting. It's right on my stuff. I get to pick my books up. I get to get things. So I came back and was telling Karis about it. Let's make sure all STA employees have these. This is a partnership we have. So we're going through the same process with them to see how we can make this work. That's very exciting. Yeah, I think it is too. I really like it. It's just a nice way to get into the door, be able to offer something that, yes, it is free. But this just gives you a little bit more of some power behind it, some purpose. Any questions on cards?
Is
reach
there-
out, let me know when you want to get them.
I actually do have a question. Are you talking to Mark about Startup Spokane and the bit kind of, leveraging business connections and adding this as a tool to the toolbox? Or-
Yes, so when we did the schools, we really talked about how we could do this. And you remember he had those business cards? So this is a great replacement that really puts it towards someone, and it's not just more of this kind of odd card you have that gets you access to a handful of things.
Okay.
This would get to that next level where you have access to everything, especially the meeting rooms for business people.
Right.
So we were starting down that path then when we changed our ILS to folio.
Okay.
So as you've been along the folio ride with us, a lot of things got put on the back burner. And these partnership cards were also one of them. So we're really excited that we've gotten to the point we have a pretty straight way of how we're gonna have them connected. We do MOUs with the businesses, so we make sure we're all aware what data we're doing, that they understand how secure we are with our data that we're getting from them. And so we have all our boilerplate stuff, so be ready to start onboarding people when they want them.
Nice.
Thank you.
Selena? Oh, Paris.
I was like, this.
I just figured since you started.
Sharing the duties.
Yes.
No one's giving you.
So I'm going to be providing a brief overview of the community engagement plan, which you'll find in your packet, and is a key step in shaping our Vision 2030, which is our strategic plan. Sure. So just as a reminder, Vision 2030 is intended to be a forward-thinking plan that will guide our library's growth, services, and spaces over the next 5 years. And this plan that you have in front of you is intended to ensure that the Vision 2030 reflects the diverse needs and ideas of Spokane residents. And we've got a few core engagement objectives. One is inclusivity. We're trying to maximize our outreach, especially to historically underserved communities. We're looking for transparency. We're hoping to have an open, culturally sensitive, and accessible participation process in this effort. We want to build relationships. We want to strengthen our partnerships across the city and build new ones. And we're looking for authentic input, which is meaningful feedback from the public, from our community members, from our partners that will actually influence the library's vision going forward. We've got a lot of participants, as you'll see when you flip through the packet there. The first ones that we have are internal, and these are our library staff, our library leadership, library board, and also our city departments. So the departments that we work most closely with and are tied to in myriad ways. After that, we have external partners, which include schools, tribal governments, businesses, and community organizations. So when we actually get into, so you can scroll through the paper. You can look through and see all the different community groups that we have identified already. And we're only going to be adding to that list as we go. But just to give you a good idea of the kinds of groups that we're trying to reach out to and we're intending to connect with. So we've got a 3-phase approach for community engagement. And the first phase is all about staffing. And we've started this one. This one began in the summer and will continue through the early part of next year. And it includes staff surveys, focus groups, and workshops to reflect on the achievements that we had in Vision 2025 and where we want to look ahead to. This is going to culminate with the board retreat, in which we'll gather your input and integrate that in with what we've done with staff and leadership. Our second phase is when we reach out to the general community, and this is where we're going to extensively use thought exchange. So thought exchange allows us to get kind of general sentiments around the city, but then also dive really specifically into subgroups and topics. And so it kind of like a survey monkey you might do will give you high level ideas of the things that people are talking about, but this one allows you to really drill down and compare groups, compare opinions, and see where people's sentiments really lie. We're also going to be doing live events, including pop-up events at our libraries and other community centers. And we're also going to be heavily hitting neighborhood council meetings to make sure that we're getting to people where they are. After those, that feedback has been gathered, we're going to integrate that in with the staff feedback and use that to build a draft of Vision 2030. And we're looking to do that in fall of 2025. We will share that draft with the staff and with our staff and the public and the board for additional feedback. Throughout the process, we're going to be using a variety of tools to gather input, including surveys, focus groups, in-person outreach, printed materials, and a very strong social media campaign to ensure broad participation. So the surveys and the social media are intended to cast a wide net so that we can include as many people as possible, but then the focus groups are intended to dive deep into those underserved communities so we can make sure that we're really getting their voices there. So our messages out to the public around this, we're trying to communicate that the library's Vision 2030 is going to be shaped by the community for the community, and that everybody's voice matters and we're listening. It's an opportunity to prepare for Spokane's future with a library that is meeting evolving needs. And why does that matter to community members who want to participate? Community input ensures that we're aligning library priorities with real community aspirations. And this degree of engagement, we're hoping will build trust, accountability, and momentum for the future implementation of the things that are going to be captured in this vision. Just to summarize, the community engagement plan is going to lay a strong foundation for ensuring that Vision 2030 reflects the voices and needs of Spokane. Our next steps are the board retreat, and you can look through there at the Vision 2030 timeline. I think that's it. So thank you. And does anybody have any questions about the communication plan that I can answer? I can try to answer. Not Amanda.
The topic change is purely for all of like an online platform. So when you do the deep dives or you have like focus groups, how are you collecting that information and sort of?
So yeah, so those would be collected via kind of traditional methods of
Yeah.
taking notes in focus groups and things like that. We're really leaning on AI to help kind of aggregate and then cross-reference these things with each other. Thought Exchange has some really cool AI integrations that allow you to do some of those summaries and cross-references right inside of the application. The other thing to think about there is that Thought Exchange allows for some in real life participation also. So like at a focus group, for example, you could throw something up on a screen and have people in the audience react to it, put their ideas up there and kind of do it all in real time. So there's an opportunity for some hybrid capture.
Cool.
And very similarly with our leadership retreat or our leadership workshop, one of the strategies that we had was handing out notebooks to everybody so that everybody who was participating could write their own personal notes. And if they didn't want to raise their hand and talk about something or some thought got missed, they were able to capture that. And then we collected all those notes at the end and scanned those in and summarized those to make sure that those thoughts weren't lost in the process. And we could do something very similar with focus groups or community groups. We're trying to be as multimodal as possible to just get as many people in the ways that they're willing to engage.
I appreciate how well thought out it is, and that, you know, you have a cohesive message to the community as to why we really want to hear from you. Want to make sure that we're getting your input so that we can deliver services.
First, which ones do you think are going to be the low hanging fruit and which ones are going to be difficult nut to crack?
What in terms of communities to reach? I imagine that, our neighborhood councils are super easy. You just kind of get on their calendars. The harder part is finding all the labor that we're going to need in order to reach all of the individual community groups that you're seeing in this. When we were doing previous bond work, like I know Andrew and I were just trying to hit this neighborhood council meetings. And we were just going gangbusters trying to fit in each and every one. So I can only imagine these kind of smaller niche groups are probably going to be a little bit more difficult to reach. There's also going to be a need to really communicate to them the value of why they would want to participate in the library process, especially the ones that we don't have an established relationship. For a lot of them that use library meeting rooms and things like that, I think those will be a lot easier. But those ones that we're kind of cold calling that we haven't engaged with are always going to be more of a challenge.
Consider hiring or contracting out additional support for this.
We're actually talking with this group that focuses on more open participation in institutions and government institutions that could help us reach some of these underrepresented populations. One of the tactics that they have is having an open application process for folks that want to participate in a stakeholder group. So following along with what are we doing and the why, the thought is that they understand the what and the why, and that they're going to have some buy-in into the process because they want to participate. Also the amount of trustee applications we received, we might be able to for some of our focus groups. The other thing that we're looking at is more of a jury selection process where some randomization of invitations would go out. And one of the cool things with Thought Exchange too is it's not just in English. I'm not sure how many languages they do. But if we're looking at, if we're looking at, more services with language access, then we can target those services. I think the work of the listening and attending those meetings, I think that we'll be able to do internally. But maybe some help out with methodology.
I'm sure you're looking for help. Lauren? Lauren loves meeting, by the way.
All right, share my screen quick. Online audience. Hey, Lauren, you just tell me when I need to move forward. Okay, I'll do.
All right, well, good evening. My name is Lauren Hayes. I Spokane Public Library's early learning specialist. I've been in the position for almost a year now. I started in January. And since it's the first time I'm meeting you, I thought I'd introduce myself a little bit. Next slide. So this is a thing I have up on my whiteboard every time I have story time. Welcome to story time. My name is Ms. Lauren. I'm so happy that you're here today. And then we sing our hello song, which we will get to. Before working at Spokane Public Library, I was at the Community Library Network in North Idaho in Hayden for about 14 years. I went to school at Washington State University, go Cougs, and I went to grad school at the University of Texas, Hook'em Horns, and I still live in Coeur d'Alene, so commuting, using Libby a lot, hearing a lot of audiobooks, and going home to 2 good boys, 2 troublemaker dogs, and my husband. We all live in Coeur d'Alene. And Mo Willems is one of my favorite authors for story time. I don't get very nervous in front of large groups of children. The story times can have up to 100 people or more, and that's not unusual. But groups of grown-ups are kind of scary. So I thought we could sing a hello song to transport me to that place. It is to the tune of For He is a Jolly Good Fellow. So most of the songs we sing in story time are we call them piggyback songs because they're words to familiar tunes. So this one goes like this. We have to wave our hands though. Thank you. I'm feeling better already. Our hands are waving hello. Our hands are waving hello. Our hands are waving hello. Because it's fun to do. And if you were my kids at story time, you'd already be yelling at me body parts, which is weird in other contexts. But normal here because that's the next thing that we need to wave. You'd say elbows. You'd say elbows, and then we'll wave our elbows. Our elbows are waving hello. Our elbows are waving hello. Our elbows are waving hello. Because it's fun to do. Good. And then you'd probably still be yelling at me. And if we're at kindergarten countdown story time, I say, ooh, we're going to practice raising hands now because I can only hear one person at a time. And that's kind of at this point in the year, we've had several weeks of story time leading up to this point. So we're kind of starting to practice raising hands and taking turns speaking. So I would get to call on you by name. We'll jump to the end of the song though. That is waving our whole bodies. And then since it's the grand finale, it ends with a big ta-da! All right, so shake it all out. Our bodies are waving hello. Our bodies are waving hello. Our bodies are waving hello. Because it's fun to do. Excellent. All right, next slide. Cool. Good. So, since we're all friends now, in one song we've already worked on some kindergarten readiness skills of raising our hands. We've been a little bit silly. We've broken the ice. Some of our friends have contributed to the story time, so we're building a community and taking some ownership of the story time. We're working on our vocabulary, different parts of the body. We're working on our gross motor skills. We are working on our hand-eye coordination. We're kind of looking on either side of us. I forgot to tell you to not whack into your next door neighbor as you're waving your whole body, but that's spatial awareness. And we're kind of settling in. The latecomers have arrived by the time we're done with this. And everyone's had a chance to participate because it's a song everybody recognizes. It's got super simple movements. And our hellos are complete. It's time for our letter of the day. Today's letter is letter L for looking, listening, learning, and libraries. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we use to create our engaging and intentional storytime programs at the library. We'll talk a little bit about what makes Kindergarten Countdown Storytime different, and the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten initiative, and then get a sneak peek of a few of our upcoming programs and projects. That is the plan. Next slide, please. All right. So, I think that when a lot of people think of story time, they're definitely thinking about books. Part of my job as early learning specialist is not just to do 4 story times a week at 3 different libraries, but I also help impart this information to the community and the parents and the caregivers during story time, as well as train some of our staff who want to be storytime facilitators to lead story times also. So we've got substitute storytime presenters, and I'm explaining to them that yes, books are super important. They have great illustrations, they're interactive, they've got great vocabulary, excellent pictures, and good representation is the foundation of a super story time. But once you add in the music and the movement and the finger plays and the props, that's when we're really starting to start creating the magic for the storytime experience. That's probably fine for that. Let's move on. So like I said, I get to do I get to do 4 story times a week. I do them for 3 different age groups. We've got a baby story time, we've got a toddler story time, we've got our kindergarten countdown story time, and then there's family story times as well. So baby story time, all of them have a lot of repetition. Baby story time, maybe 80% repetition, because that's age appropriate. They're coming just to create a warm experience for caregivers and the bonding opportunities at the library. Once you get to toddler and preschool story times, you're starting to introduce some basic concepts. You're starting to add in a little bit longer stories. Toddlers are getting more dancing and guided movements, a lot of music. We know they've got shorter attention spans, so they've got to move around a little bit. Well, a lot. And they need those simpler instructions. And then once you can come graduate up to kindergarten countdown story time, we're doing even longer story times, longer books, that is. We're doing more counting. We've got longer attention spans. We're starting to work on taking turns, waiting, following directions, even multi-step directions, developing those good listening skills, and really getting ready for kindergarten. Now, all of our story times have a consistent routine, lots of books, and we're starting to build on those skills so they're ready to move up to the next story time as they get older. Let's move on to the next slide. Thank you. All right. So here is a rundown of kindergarten countdown story time. I was going to ask you, let's see. All of our kindergarten countdown story times have a question of the day. So we will get to that in just a minute, but I am going to send a question of the day down the table. So we have some stickers to count in just a little bit. So question of the day has 2 or 3 options. We've got stickers that you're choosing one of the options, and then towards the end of story time, we count the answers. That's all at the assignment table where we've got name tags where, I don't know, this time of year that you can almost recognize their name on their name tag that they've written themselves. And then the weekly question on that welcome table. Top picture is my welcome table at Hilliard Kindergarten Countdown Story Time. Everybody's kind of thinking about some of those deep questions I've asked. We've also got basically a homework folder that I'm sending home every week. Corresponding to the letter of the day is a practice paper that the kids take home. They, they do as much of it as they want to. They color the picture. If they bring it back the following week, they get a little sticker on their folder. So that's Nolan's folder. She's been coming almost every week. She's got pretty good, almost perfect attendance. I think like 9 stickers at that point. We've got a welcome routine, and then we've got all of our letter of the day activities. So I've Most of our story times are themed. I'm not going in alphabetical order for my letter of the day. It's just kind of a letter that seems to go with the theme that day. This week, it's J for Jingle Bells, because we've been doing some Jingle Bell activities. And then next big block is story time with all those super books, really interactive dialogic reading, asking questions, asking for their thoughts and predictions as we're going along, and a bunch of extension activities. For toddler story time, I'm usually doing scarves or shaker eggs. Kindergarten countdown story time, we've started branching into parachute activities. Rhythm sticks are pretty fun too. And then sometimes just little die cuts or spider rings were a prop one time, different fun things like that. And then our closing routine has us counting the answers to that question of the day, reviewing our letter with our pocket chart here. So let's see. We said it was L, so we would look in here. Let's see. Oh, there's a lot. And then we'd sing ABCs. I do kindergarten countdown story time at Hilliard and South Hill libraries. We have Mason doing kindergarten countdown story time at Liberty Park and Kathy at Indian Trail. They both had the great idea to use our 1,000 books before kindergarten tracking sheet to color in the books that they read during story time. So they're actually tracking along as they go, which is a New Year's resolution for me. I will start that. And then we end with some fun play and learn activities, lots of great age appropriate toys that makes everyone take turns, share, do some of those social problem solving that sometimes comes with that. So let's see how it came, how our question of the day turned out here.
We're like a tiebreaker.
So I picked a candy cane question, since it kind of looks like letter J, which is my letter of the week. And it was, which end of the candy canes do you eat first? So we talk a little bit about predictions or estimating just by looking at it, which side do you think has more stickers? And then we would go through and count them up. Maybe do some addition, maybe use like alligator arms for greater than and less than. I'll show you how the kids answered yesterday. Let's see, it was 14-6 for eating the bookend first. Among children in South Hill yesterday.
The hook's always broken anyway. It's supposed to easy access for, they can't unwrap them on their own. And so it's broken and then they can eat it.
And they don't care if it's drippy and drooly,
No.
they have the whole thing stuck in their mouth.
Stick makes you less sticky, like if you can hold on to the hook, then I don't know. My vote was first to decide. All right, on to the next slide, please. So we relaunched our 1,000 books before kindergarten initiative. We didn't come up with it. It's a national program that helps establish reading routines with families during children's early years of development, because we know that kids who start out young reading a lot have that much more success when they start school. So the plan is they read any book as many times as you want. Each time counts. You color in the little circle on the log or log it in Beanstack. And then every time you get to 100, you come to the library and you get a special sticker that says, I read 100 books or 200 books. And they're pretty cute. There's going to be special prizes. You get a free book when you complete 500. And then there's a grand prize at the end for 1,000, which is a book character stuffy from maybe you've seen when you're shopping at Kohl's at the end of the registers there, they have different book characters in the Kohl's Care line. So, and then we're hoping that that the parents, the caregivers who did all the logging, they'll get a tote bag too. So that'll be pretty nice. Next slide, please. Looking ahead, here are some of the projects we're working on. New Year's Eve is going to be right here in this room on New Year's Eve. We'll count down to noon. I've been kind of scoping it out to see if there's any way I can rig up a balloon drop here when we count down to noon. Because that's pretty great, but also balloons on a parachute's pretty good too. So we're gonna see how that works out. Pajama story time will be on a day when there's no school. It's scheduled at the end of January, I think during learning week. So that'll be pretty great for families to be able to come at the Liberty Park Library pajama story time. In the spring, we'll start participating in the primetime preschool program. We're excited about that. Kindergarten Countdown will have its graduation parties to send all of our outgoing students into kindergarten for real. And then in the summer, we're looking forward to story times in the park again, maybe even expanding to a couple more locations. Of course, summer reading. Those are things that are coming up. Also some new story kits, getting all of our prizes in for 1,000 books for kindergarten. All of those so coming up. I'll probably be talking to you about them next time I see you. Next slide is our last slide where I see if you have any questions for me.
How are the story times are an hour?
Story time is, well, baby story time is like 20 minutes with 40 minutes of play. Toddler story time about half hour and then a half hour play. Kindergarten Countdown story time runs 35 to 40 minutes and then we'll do about half hour play.
Did I see that you could have them reading the same book over and over and still get credit for it? I thought I saw it.
Yeah, if you've got a favorite book, that counts every time you read it.
Okay.
Yep.
How do you do it with 100 kids?
You know, remind yourself to breathe. And yeah, I mean, I always, when I'm doing story time, it's for the kids, but it's also modeling for the caregivers. So I will say, you know, if you find out that this book is too long as you're reading it, it's okay to end it early. And sometimes you just have to do that.
Yeah.
If you've got that many people.
Yeah.
And then usually extra dance because there's a lot of energy in the room.
Thank you.
But all right, do you want to hear the goodbye song?
Yeah.
All right, alligator arms. See you later, alligator. Crocodile, bye bye, butterfly. We'll see you again next time. See you again next time. Yeah, thank you so much for your time and do not take for granted the supportive board. This is really important to us. So thanks for everything you do too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's a great way to almost end. Because I know what's coming up. Let's see. So Andrew.
Yes, so as you are aware, we are under recruitment for a new trustee. Start next April. And we need to establish a subcommittee to go through applications, interview, and make a recommendation to the mayor for the upcoming vacancy. So we are looking for 2 trustees to serve. Hoping to do the interviews late January, early February. And then mayor will make the see our recommendation, either agree or disagree, and send a recommendation along to city and council for their action.
How many judges are we?
Just 2.
Two. Okay. And does it have to be the same two process?
We have done that in the past where it is the same 2, so we have some consistency. To the applicants.
Assuming that you will be as outgoing that you will be part of this process.
Not necessarily. I was part of it last time. I recall you. So, and I wasn't party then, so I think, I almost think it makes more sense. Well. Yeah, I'm doing that.
I'm happy to volunteer to be on the committee, I guess.
Thank you, Shelby.
I would also happily volunteer. I also don't want to, if somebody else is really excited about it.
Okay.
I don't want to. Throw both.
Well, let's do it this way. Anybody who has an interest, just go ahead. Obviously, we're gonna have to have at least 2 people to join it, this people who come to the next level. So, how soon do you want this to start, sir?
As soon as I get the subcommittee, I'll start sharing applications, and then we'll get times and where everyone's available, and we'll start setting those interviews at the end of January.
Well, I'm always interested, but a lot of this depends on whether you want me. You know, I don't want to take a spot someone could have. So I've already.
I mean, I respect your opinion, and so if you're interested.
We'll have some time to talk about it.
We're not making a motion.
Well, we're making a motion to create the,
Do you want to select 2 and an alternate
yeah, let's do that.
based on schedules?
Yeah.
But who do we want the core 2 to be?
Question, does the recommendation come forward before this?
It has not in the past. Okay,
Is that a possibility?
could do that.
Really?
Let's do that.
Okay.
We'll change the process.
Let's do it.
Just add like an executive session to after interviews.
Yeah, we'll consult with legal on how. I'm not sure if that falls under executive session.
Okay.
But we can consult with city legal. So you want to set
Okay.
2 core and 1 alternate?
Yeah. let's do that.
So Danny and Shelby is the board, Gary's the alternate.
Pretty
Does
much.
that sound okay?
Okay, fine.
All right, I move that the subcommittee be set with Danny and Shelby serving and Gary. Second.
Favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
here we go.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Probably adjourn.
Do executive session.
Executive session.
Plenty of things here. Okay, so all in favor of closing this portion of the meeting so that we can go to the next level?
Do we need to say how long?
So you'll need to determine a time amount that you'll be in executive session. See that time that you need to come back out and say, need another 5 minutes.
How about 6:30?
I think I feel like we took like 10 minutes last year.
I said maybe 15.
Okay.
and thinking.
I-
We can add more time.
I know this group, so
Okay. Well, now, we get in trouble if we say too long and then we end early, like maybe we say 20 minutes. Have a little bit.
We have to keep that 20 minutes. We say 20 minutes.
If
If
you-
we say, never mind, come back, we just went 10.
No, so if you, whatever you say as your time, you have to be in that time. And then if you need to extend it,
It's like your dinner plate.
Oh,
You can-
yes, take
Always
only
add.
what you need
But
and
you
then
can't
add
put it-
servings
Maybe we should start.
artichoke dip.
Yeah.
okay, if we can do this no later than 6.
Okay.
That's,
So do
So
you
maybe
want
we
to,
start with 15 minutes?
and then extend it?
and then we have a 10-minute extension.
He's like, I'm gonna be an hour.
I've been to one of these before. It's not a pretty
I know,
process,
I believe you.
but this will be fun.
Yeah.
Because you're all well-meaning and good people. Okay, so let's see. Public comment? Anyone? Anyone?
But he's like,
And nothing else.
Okay. So our next regular meeting will be on January 21st, 2025. In Hilliard. So we are now going to adjourn for all this governance.
Executive.
Yep, okay, executive session and we are going away.